Hello, BookTube. This is Aaron from Aaron Read a Book or Aaron Read a Book. I thought I'd crack on with the joint Hugo and Nebula Awards books. We're up to part 4 now, and we're entering sort of the early to mid 80s. Not my favourite time in sci-fi. I definitely prefer the 60s and 70s, but there are some great books still on this list. And we start with a great one. The winner in 1983 to 1984 was David Brin's Startide Rising. Now, this is the second in a series of book called the Uplift Saga, and this is a concept that Brin came up with where creatures of Earth are basically genetically modified to become sort of super evolved. So in this book we follow I think it's a single chimpanzee who's been uplifted and a ship of 150 dolphins. So this is a space dolphin novel, which is already brilliant. One note is you don't have to read the first one to read this one. I've not read the first one, but I've read this one and I love this book. So they can be read as standalones as well. And if you're a fan of Adrian Tchaikovsky, you will love these books as well, because Adrian Tchaikovsky obviously took the idea and used it for spiders and other things in the future. So the basic plot of this space dolphin novel is this ship of dolphins finds a lost fleet. So it's sort of a found object sort of novel as well. They find a lost fleet which they believe belongs to the sort of the original race of beings that created this uplift program. There's an accident and they have to run away, and they are pursued by sort of religious zealots who also want access to this fleet, and they're trying to hide out on a planet basically. So it has lots of elements to it. It's very action packed. And it's action packed from the perspective of dolphins, so it's brilliant because they're like swimming really fast through the sea and stuff. So it's a very entertaining novel. It has lots of nice little elements as well, like the dolphins have their own languages and things, and like one of their languages is like haikus. And I think Adrian Tchaikovsky does that really well in his books as well. He develops a culture based around what that animal is like in real life. So high recommend Startide Rising. The only other David Brin I've read is The Postman, which I liked as well, but not as much as this one. We move on to the next year. This is a nice little run now. There's I think 4 years in a row where a novel won both of them, and this is probably one of the most glaring omissions in my own reading because it's a book I haven't read, and that is William Gibson's Neuromancer, which is obviously a hugely influential book and one of the earlier cyberpunk novels. I think I have never read it because I've never really got on that well with cyberpunk. But this was Gibson's first novel and was very influential on the genre and very influential on the film The Matrix, which is obviously a great film. The basic plot is it's set in sort of a Japanese city in the future, which is a very common thing in sci-fi now. And it's about a hacker who does sort of illegal jobs for people, and he's cut off from the Matrix, which is like the neural network, basically internet. This was written obviously way before the internet was a thing, and he's offered a cure if he does a job for this girl who contacts him. So people who seem to love this novel on Goodreads say it's like an action-packed thrill ride, and I really should read it. It's not very big either. So if you are a big fan of Neuromancer and or if you hated it, let me know down in the comments. I definitely will read it. It'll probably be the next one on this list I read. But yeah, an interesting sounding novel, even if it's just for how influential it was. The next two winners are the first case where they gave both awards to a novel and its sequel back to back. So that is Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card, and that was 1985, 1986, and then obviously 1986, 1987 was Speak for the Dead, which is the follow up. I have read Ender's Game, but I have not read Speaks for the Dead yet. And one of the reasons for that is I didn't really like Ender's Game that much. And I don't know if it's because it was sort of overhyped to me by Reddit and other places where it's kind of their favourite novel ever. It's a bit of a sort of Harry Potter for science fiction, because it is about a young boy who goes at a very young age to battle school. He is the third child in a world where you're only really meant to have two children. This is set in the future, but not given any specific time. And their family has allowed the third child because the first two children are like geniuses. So Ender's the main character, sent to military school at like 6 years old, and it's hard to talk about this novel without giving any spoilers. He goes to battle school, and it's very like a lot of novels with sort of young protagonists. He's sort of overcoming challenges. People don't think he's going to be the best, and then he's the best. I think that's another reason why I wasn't really that fond of it. I don't really like books where the protagonist is like a superhuman, but it does have some really interesting messages in it. And again, this has a sort of pseudo internet in it before the internet was a thing. He may have been influenced somewhat by Gibson, so an interesting and important book, but one I probably need to reread to fully understand. Let me know in the comments if you're a fan of these. Last time I made a video with Ender's Game in it, everyone said this one's much better, so maybe I should read this one. And yeah, we'll stop there, as we've been doing 4 at a time. We are getting into territory where I'm much less familiar, so I do want to try and read some of the upcoming ones before I make videos about them. But there are still some books I love a lot on this list coming up, so have a good one, BookTube.